Today's flip is a confirmation that we need to continue putting out quality work for our markets. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. It's Lauren here, and today we've got this big custom-made piece of furniture that I am going to make over again. Long story short, I got reached out to by a person who was actually on Facebook. They were a part of a mom's group and they were asking for suggestions about people who paint furniture and restore furniture and things like that. And my name got brought up, so she reached out to me and she says, I have this big custom made piece. Could you paint it for me? So of course I said, yes, how can I help you? Once I went over to her house, she was kind of explaining the story to me. And basically her and her husband wanted a large piece for a media console under a TV. Her husband and a friend took it home, sanded it all down back to its original state, which is just the raw bare wood. Since it's already all sanded down, I am going to wipe back all of the dust, and then we're gonna prime, and then we're gonna paint, and then we're gonna top coat, and it's gonna look 10 times better. So I've just got my microfiber cloth, and like I said, they spent 8 hours sanding this down to be a smooth surface. They said that when it came home that this part right here was raised and it was just so uneven, and it was just not good. And so they spent a lot of time getting this prepped and prepared, and I'm really thankful for that because I would not have wanted to spend 8 hours sanding this down. But now it's ready for us. So all I need to do is get that dust wiped back so that I've got a clear, clean surface. Right here, you can kind of see the really rough paint job that was done. So I've also got all of the doors and drawer fronts here, and they had taken it all apart when they were sanding. So these are also going to need to be wiped down as well as primed and sprayed. I asked my client if she wanted the inside to be painted, and she kind of left it up to me. And I've been back and forth between if I think it should be painted inside or if I don't. But in the long run, I think that it will last longer and be a better quality in the inside, if that makes any sense, because you know, when you're putting things in here, it's going to be a media cabinet, so there's going to be a wood shelf here, and so when you're putting things in, it's less likely that things are going to get damaged. If there's no paint on there, things won't get scratched up. So I'm going to leave it as the raw wood, which means since I'm spraying, I do need to go ahead and trap this part off with some plastic. Lately, honestly, I've just been using some old trash bags that I have, and they're just kind of cheaper quality, but you can also get any plastic, you know, on Amazon or at the home store. I know that took a little bit of time, but it's going to up my quality, which again is what we're going to be talking about for this entire video. My next step is to fill up my sprayer with my Boss, and I'm going to be using gray Boss because it's the darkest Boss that Dixie Belle has, and then we're going with a darker color for the paint. So let's go fill up the Boss. I am going to be using the Graco TC Pro cordless airless handheld sprayer today, and I think it's pretty cool because they are actually powered by a DeWalt battery, so I won't have to have a cord in my way the whole time. I am gonna pour some Dixie Belle Gray Boss into my sprayer through my strainer because I want to make sure there's no chunks that end up in the sprayer, because that'll just clog everything. And we're just gonna let that finish straining. Sometimes it does take a little while, but you just really need to not skip this part because those chunks just mess everything up. Okay, now that we've got our Boss in our container, which by the way, this is actually a container that goes inside of this cup holder. So it's 2 different pieces. I'm going to attach it. And like I said, we need to get all of this air out of this compartment. So there's this little flap right here that has an air hole. And so it's kind of weird, but you squeeze all the air out until you don't have any air left, and then close it up. And you still might have some air in there. You'll kind of have to do some testing. It'll not go basically if you have air in there. So, and then we're gonna head over to my spray booth where I've got some cardboard pieces and I'm gonna test this out before I put it on the actual piece. So I tested it out just a little bit. When you have it on the setting 1, it actually is like their highest setting, and so it'll spit out basically chunks of paint. And so then I went all the way down to 10, and it's a much better finish. It's a lot thinner. It comes out a lot better than the 1. I kind of got scared there for a minute, but I keep having to drain the air out. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, you know, through the whole project. Well, I love this sprayer, I really do, but it puts a lot of paint onto the credenza, and basically I had an almost full can of Boss and I've used it all just on the credenza, not the drawers or the doors yet. So maybe I'm not using it right, but we're gonna keep testing stuff. Looking in here in the directions, it does say that for interior things, it says that I need to do 1 to 5. So I think that since I had it on 10, it was blasting a ton of paint Boss onto the surface, which then made me use a whole bunch of it. I think if I go down a little bit lower, it's still gonna have good coverage, but it's not gonna blast as much. Just learn from your experiences and get out there and try new things. Much better. I'm gonna try to even go lower on my next round. What has to happen next is I've gotta let this Boss dry on this side of the doors and drawers because I've gotta flip it over and do the front sides. I decided that I'm gonna do both sides of both because, you know, when you open it, I want it to be finished just like the outsides. I think our prime number is 3. I have a little bit left. Plus I did more because I had to do the underside of the whole piece, both on the lip on the top and under here on the kick plate. I think we're prime number and at 3. We're gonna let this Boss dry and then we'll come back and we'll start to paint. When we were talking about color, I knew that she wanted a navy color, but she wanted it to be even darker than navy. So I swatched out some colors before I went and picked up the piece. I knew I was gonna be using in the navy, and then she wanted it darker, so I paired it with caviar. So I swatched out just in the navy, and then I did 1 part in the navy, 1 part caviar, and then I did 2 parts in the navy, 1 part caviar, and this is the one that she ended up going with. So again, not too navy, but even more dark. So she wants that black added in there. Knowing that this is gonna take quite a bit of paint, and yet I've only got this amount of paint, I need to be diligent with how I do my mixtures. So I'm gonna try and fill this as much as I can with my mixture so that I don't have to continue coming back and refilling. So right now I'm gonna do 4 parts of the In the Navy and then 2 parts caviar, just to see how much we'll end up with here. I think we're gonna start with 3 parts In the Navy instead of 4. And then since we are dealing with Dixie Belle's chalk paint, it is on the thicker side. So in order for it to go through the sprayer smoothly, I am gonna just dilute it with a tad bit of water, about 10%. And this is also just something that you feel out. If you think that it needs to have some more water in there, you can always add that in too. And screw it on. All right, now that I've got my sprayer all fixed up and ready to go, we're ready to paint. So over here with the door fronts, I'm having a hard time figuring out what to exactly do, but this one is actually in really good shape, but the other 3 have these marks in them where you can just really see the graining of the wood. I'm not even sure if you guys can see it on camera, but it's indentions in the wood, and I'm just not liking the way that's looking. It's very visible from the eye. And so I'm gonna take some Dixie mud and we're going to just smooth it out, and we're going to make sure that these get filled. This is just an extra step that I'm taking. You know, we didn't really talk about this step, but I feel tremendously horrible with her experience before, and I told her that I was gonna make it look right, and so this is something that I know that is just going to give it that finishing touch. Okay, I'm gonna let this Dixie mud dry now for a little while, and then I'll come back and I will do some sanding to smooth everything out, and we'll see if we need to apply any more to just make sure that it's perfect. All of the little cracks filled in really nicely. So let's head back over there to spray some more paint. We are officially ready to get to coat number 2 on the base of this guy. I already did a second coat on the insides of the drawer fronts and the doors, but we will have to flip those over one last time for the painting of the second coat. But before I second coat the big base, I am going to take a super fine Surf Prep rad pad and just smooth out all of the finish on there, and then we'll wipe it back. But I mean, it's got a really smooth finish, but I just want to make sure that if there's any of those bumps or roughness, that I get all that smoothed out before applying that second coat. I'm ready for coat number 2 on this guy. You can just, I know you can see the sanding paper marks, but the feeling of how it was before and how it is now is just night and day difference. It really smoothed out that finish. So it's ready for second coat. It's time for the top coat. So I did have a little bit of extra blue in my cup liner, so I'm actually going to keep that in there to kind of tint that top coat a little bit. I've talked about this several times, but even when you're spraying, it's good to just go that extra step and tint your top coat so that it more matches that color. You're less likely to get streak marks like that, and any cloudiness will go away. She does want it to be a glossy finish, so I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's Gator Hide, and I actually also mixed some satin in there because I didn't have a ton of Gator Hide, but just put a little satin in there, which also has a sheen. So we're going to fill up the cup liner and mix it all together. And again, you don't want to mix too much because if you tint your top coat, you're not going to be able to use that again unless you use the same color. But I'm going to just dump some in. You do need to strain your top coat still, but you don't need to water that down. The top coat's much thinner than, say, the paint, so it's going to sift through that strainer much quicker than the paint does because it's just not as thick. I'm going to reattach the top. Get all that air out of there again. Prime it. And we're ready to spray. So I am about 90% done. The last and final step with the sprayer is to let this dry and flip them to do that last side, which is actually the front side of the doors and the drawers. We're ready to put everything together after we got that top coat on. I let it dry for a couple of days just so that it wasn't sticky or anything like that, since I have to actually reattach all of the parts. So first I'm gonna go ahead and take the plastic off, and then we'll reattach all of the drawers and doors and also the hardware that she had given me to put on the doors. All right, we're done. We got it all put back together, and I really like the way that it looks, apart from some of the craftsmanship that had nothing to do with what I did to the piece, such as just the drawers not closing all the way and things like that. The lady did say that, you know, if I can't quite get the drawers back in, her husband can finish that up. I did my job. I sprayed it with Dixie Belle's Navy plus Caviar, and I think that the color just looks amazing on this. The finish is very nice and smooth. I will give it one more wipe down. All in all, I'm really pleased with the results. And also, I really enjoyed using that new sprayer. Let's head over to the staging wall and talk about some numbers. Here we are over at the staging wall. I just love this part because you get to see it as it might look in someone's home, and I am just so excited to see the reaction of the family. In the beginning of the video, we just talked so much about how quality matters, and so I hope that you guys learned that throughout this process that I really took my time and I made sure that I was producing a quality product for the end result. And then we come to pricing. So when I do commission work, as you guys know, I always try to give them a range. And I've learned this over time because I used to just give one number and then, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I had way more work than I thought. And so I feel bad now charging you more because I told you this specific price. Well, I've learned my lesson and I hope that you guys can learn from my mistakes as well. So this time I gave her a range of $250 to $350, and that range includes time that I put in, material costs that I have, and as you guys know, this is a big piece and it's honestly bigger than I thought it was, even though she gave me those dimensions. I used a lot of product, and so I'm gonna be definitely on that higher end of my range, and I'm gonna go ahead and charge them that $350. $25 for pickup and delivery. Do not short yourself if you are delivering things for people or picking them up for people, because that's your time, and at the end of the day, that's your gas money. So that's what we charge, is $25 in our metro area. So just a little tip for you if you are doing the same thing. So all in all, the total cost for them is going to be $400. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I had a lot of fun doing it with my new Graco home sprayer. It was interesting to get all of the kinks worked out, but once I got them worked out, I really had a good time just spraying, and spraying really does make your job go a lot faster, and the results are nice and smooth at the end. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, always produce quality products, especially if you're going to be charging a pretty good amount for your work. I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned a couple of things. We will be back here next Thursday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.